Every once in a while, you come across an idea that doesn't just teach you something new, it completely rearranges the furniture in your brain. Today, we're diving into a source that does exactly that. It proposes this really radical shift in how we think about ancient wisdom, especially in our super high-tech world. So let's get right into it.
Now, you might think this is all about looking back at the past, right? But get this. The central idea we're exploring today is that by rediscovering something ancient, we can actually pull the future closer to us. It's this wild concept that the key to what's coming next is actually hidden in our history. So, what is this game-changing idea?
Well, it all kicks off with this really challenging question. What if the main way we've all been taught to learn and engage with important ideas, through reading, is just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle? What if, for centuries, we've been kinda limiting ourselves without even realizing it?
And that leads us right into our first big point, what our source calls the tyranny of text. Yeah, sounds dramatic, right? But we're about to take a hard look at an assumption we've held for centuries, that the written word is the absolute best, or even the only path to deep truth.
For hundreds of years, we've put literacy up on a pedestal. And for good reason. It's an incredible tool. But in doing that, we might have started treating it as the absolute peak of learning, the single best way to get to a deep understanding of anything.
Okay, so here is the big reframe. The old assumption is that literacy equals the apex of learning. It's the top of the mountain. But the reality this book presents is that literacy is just one way of learning, one modality. It's not the master of all the other methods. It's a partner sitting at the same table.
So if text isn't the only way, then what have we been missing out on? This is where we get to recover this incredibly powerful and ancient practice. We're talking about orality, a time when truth wasn't carried on paper, but on breath. This timeline tells such a fascinating story. For most of human history, sacred texts were an event, something you heard and experienced. In the diaspora, stories were carried on breath. Early faith communities literally heard the word together. Even during the Reformation, they used both the spoken word and the new tech of the printing press. It's only in the modern era that we went all in on text, and in the process, maybe we lost something really vital. So when you look at it that way, it opens up this profound idea that real meaning is about so much more than just black and white words on a page. It's about how those words come alive inside of us. And that, my friends, is all about the power of imagination. And this leads us to a really crucial concept called encoding. Now, we usually think about decoding words when we read, but encoding is how a community embeds meaning into a story in the first place, through shared memories, symbols, and relationships. How a group encodes truth completely shapes how they end up living it out. And this quote just nails the whole idea. For a long time, especially in cultures that are really focused on text, we've seen imagination as kind of unreliable, a potential bug in the system. But in oral traditions, it's the exact opposite. Imagination is the feature. It's the very doorway you have to walk through to find meaning. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? How do you move from these big ideas to, actually doing something with them? Well, it turns out there's a field-tested system designed for exactly that. It's called the Disciple-Making Oral Bible Strategy, or DOBS for short. And this isn't just another technique or a quick tip. It's an entire ecosystem for learning and growth that puts these ancient oral principles right back in the center of things.
The DOBS system is built on this really beautiful, simple framework: head, heart, and hand. So it starts with the head. You got to understand the story. But then it moves to the heart, making it personal, internalizing it through memory, emotion, and imagination. And finally, it gets to the hand, actually living it out together as a community. It engages your whole person, not just your brain.
And listen, this isn't some academic theory cooked up in a lab. The DOBS system was built and tested in the real world, in village churches in Myanmar, with believers from Muslim backgrounds and across all kinds of different multilingual contexts in Africa. It's a proven, practical strategy that works.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about the past, but remember that quote from the very beginning about pulling the future toward us? Well, here is where things get really, really interesting. This ancient way of thinking is, it turns out, perfectly designed for our high-tech future.
Just think about AI for a second. The kind of AI we've had for a while, predictive AI, is a genius with text. But the new kid on the block, generative AI, it thinks in a totally different way. It's multimodal. It gets images, sound, stories.
It's expressive. It's creative. It aligns perfectly with how oral and visual cultures have always made sense of the world. It's like our technology is finally catching up to our most ancient human traditions. How cool is that?
So let's pull all these threads together. Let's summarize the really powerful paradigm shift that's being presented here. This is all about building a totally new kind of ecosystem for how we learn and how we grow.
So what's the big takeaway? First, literacy isn't the master. It's just one powerful tool. Second, speaking, hearing, and seeing are totally legitimate ways to carry deep truth. Third, how we use our imagination to encode meaning is absolutely essential. And finally, all of this ancient wisdom doesn't just connect us to our past, it is the perfect preparation for a future being shaped by generative AI. And all of that leaves us with one final, provocative question to think about. This whole explainer has been about reordering our imagination, seeing it not as a flaw, but as a doorway. So, the question for all of us is this. If we are finally ready to walk through that door, what new worlds of meaning, of understanding, and transformation are waiting for us on the other side?